Welcome inside another edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, presented by Pittsburgh Sports Now. This week almost over, and there's a lot to look forward to before we close this week, especially for Pitt fans. We are going to touch on Pitt's upcoming primetime matchup with North Carolina, and I will tell you this too, even if you're not a Pitt fan, this should be an entertaining game. So if you want to be entertained before you go to bed here and before you get to that Friday and that weekend, Pitt, North Carolina could provide that. Could be an offensive shootout. What this game means for Pitt, what they have to do to get a victory, because this is a similar game to what Pitt has lost this year, facing similar offenses. Will their defense show up? And then also an update on the Horton situation for Pitt basketball. We've now seen them play without him as well. We now have a little bit more information about when he could, how long he could be out, when he could be back, what's going on with him, and all that uncertainty, and how it's really affecting this team on the floor, who laid a clunker there with the opening season loss to Citadel. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I am joined as always by Mike Vukovcan. Mike,
I'm ready, Mike. I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready here. I said this last night. I said this last night. Regardless of what happens tonight at the game, it is just so refreshing to have a game in November with implications that means something. There's just nothing like it to go into a game that's just not just a game, a game that you win. You win and you possibly advance, so you get step closer to the playoffs or to a championship. That's what real college football is about.
Right.
Unfortunately for Pitt fans, they haven't had that very often over the last 20 some years, but they have it this year. They should enjoy it and enjoy this team, because as you find out, you just don't know when you're going to be back in this situation. They could be back to playing meaningless games in October and November. You just don't know. So I would enjoy these next 2 weeks, because regardless of what happens this week and then next week against Virginia on Senior Day, the games will mean something.
Yeah, and they won't be easy games, but they really do mean something. Pitt, obviously, the playoff is no longer a story for Pitt, but they have a lot in front of them. The ACC conference, they could legitimately win a conference title. They're being picked for legitimate bowl games right now in predictions. They have to keep winning. If they lose these games, that would seemingly go away. But to go into these games late in a season and know they matter, that is big for the fan base, that is big for the program, that is big for the Narduzzi era. And as you mentioned, you got to appreciate it now. Kenny Pickett's not going to be back. This is going to be a different team next year. Pitt's very lucky to have had him come back this year. That wasn't necessarily even something that had to be a guarantee either. So again, appreciate it while it's here. Pitt, North Carolina tonight, and a big game for Pitt, to say the very, very least. North Carolina, though, coming off a very big win over Wake Forest that takes Wake Forest from being undefeated to having a loss, which basically guarantees the conference will not be a part of the playoff this year. But that's a North Carolina team that, entering the season, and they have a national championship winning head coach. They have built it to this point. You wouldn't think that from North Carolina football, but they have. They had high hopes. They had the hopes of being this Pitt team this year. They started off slow. They were upset a little bit early, and now they've turned it on. And yeah, they don't have a chance at a special season to the level of what Pitt does, but they certainly would like to play spoiler, and they certainly still are looking at a postseason, wanting a bowl game, etc. So this win would certainly help them do that. We know what Pitt's problem has been in the losses, and it's defensively. Pitt's offense, Kenny Pickett, they've showed up. And you expect they're going to have to in this game. You expect they will. North Carolina is going to bring it offensively. 58 points in the victory over Wake Forest, but they needed it as Wake Forest put up 55. So their defense not great either. What are your thoughts about this game? What are the keys to this game? Is it as simple as if the defense shows up and they get enough stops, Pitt should be able to throw up enough points to win it? Or is there something else going on here?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. It honestly could be, you hear this a lot, and it's a boring thing to say, but the biggest thing could be turnovers, and what offense has more possessions during the game.
Right.
Because I looked at the over and under. The last time I saw it was 76. That looks like a slam dunk.
Seems low. Yeah.
Yeah. With these two offenses, that just, it's crazy to say 76 is a
Yeah.
It's a slam dunk, but I don't think that's the case, with this game. These teams are very similar. Star quarterback, really good running back. North Carolina probably actually has the edge there. They have a guy, Josh Downs, that just ran for 4 touchdowns and 200 plus yards against Wake Forest. So they could do it by running and passing. And they also have a star receiver that, like Jordan Addison, he'll be playing in the NFL, a guy named Josh Downs. He has over 1,000 yards receptions, or 1,000 yards receiving, 70 plus receptions. He's their guy that Sam Howell's going to go to. The problem that Pitt fans are going to have to watch is, I'm okay with Sam Howell throwing the ball as far as trying to defend him. They've done a decent job the last couple of years. Last time they played, they actually beat North Carolina. Problem with Sam Howell is his running ability. He's he's a little bit built like Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he can get outside the pocket. Right.
Yeah, he's not a Lamar Jackson as far as slender. He's a big, if you look at him, he could be a running back, or he's thick. Yeah, but he can move.
Right.
And that always gives Pitt problems.
Yeah, he's old school Big Ben.
Yes, that's great comparison there, Mike. Exactly. Yeah. He rushed for 700 yards already as a quarterback.
Yeah.
So he looks to run. The advantage that I say Pitt a little bit is, we talk, we focus here in Pittsburgh because, obviously that's who we cover. But North Carolina has been as bad or worse defensively than Pitt.
Oh, absolutely.
Pitt probably has an advantage defensively against North Carolina. So that's why I said it could just come down to whatever defense can cause a turnover, and possibly, what team gets the ball coming out of the half. If you get the ball right before the half, you score. If you get it coming back after the second half, you get that extra possession. Little things like that is what it possibly could come down to. But I don't know. I definitely think it'll be a game that comes down to the fourth quarter. As far as the point spread, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be an entertaining game. Certainly a game that we all hope doesn't disappoint. The over-under, I actually looked at this, Mike. This is unbelievable. It's now 73.5. It's going down.
Wow.
I just looked. It's 73.5 right now. The over-under has now moved to 73.5.
That would worry me.
Pitt is favored by 6.5, but Vegas is usually reasonable. They're moving that down. The only thing that I can think of to move it down is if Pitt can pick up some turnovers early and then maybe get in neutral late in the game. Maybe it's not a close game. I don't know. That's where it is right now. I would say for North Carolina's advantage would be if Pitt would miss tackles, because as you're mentioning, they have an elusive quarterback that can run outside the pocket. Even if these players aren't designed for him, this isn't Lamar Jackson. This isn't West Virginia's old school Pat White. This isn't a spread offense, but this is somebody that can get around. And if you miss the tackles, then you don't know what's going to happen beyond that. It could lead to a first down. I mean, Pitt's offense, again, it's going to show up 6 touchdown passes, even in lost to Western Michigan. This is about the defenses. Pitt's defense has played good enough at times, not so much at other times. But you look at North Carolina, you mentioned they're allowing points pretty much to everybody, and that's literally true. They allowed 55 to Wake Forest last week, 44 to Notre Dame, 42 to Miami. They actually did beat Miami, who beat Pitt. That's a common opponent, obviously. And then even in a loss to Florida State, 35, that's not a good Florida State team, and then only 7 to Duke. But besides Duke, and Pitt fans are just familiar with that game against Duke. They're allowing points to everyone, and they have been vulnerable to lose games they shouldn't have lost. They should be in the similar situation to Pitt. Their losses, Virginia Tech, Florida State, they beat Wake Forest, and then Notre Dame, of course. So who knows? But it's going to have to be the situation. It's going to have to be Pitt's defense stepping up and playing at least well enough here.
Yeah, one thing we should bring up is the injury factor. Pitt had a lot of injuries at the end of last game. From what I hear, this is nothing. I think one thing is going to help Pitt out is we've been talking all year about their depth on their team. And I think regardless if anyone misses, I would say that Mack and Barden are long shots to play. Pitt has enough depth at those positions at wide receiver that, obviously those are two good players, but
Right.
that won't affect the offense. They have plenty of other guys that are, quote, backups that could be starters that could jump in. So I don't think that's a problem. On the offensive line, I think Narduzzi earlier this week mentioned that starting left guard Marcus Minor, who's played well this year, they said he'll be ready to go. And the right tackle, Gabe Hoy, even if he doesn't play, I think their depth with Goncalves at right tackle, I think he's perfectly fine. I think they're actually similar type players, and I don't think he's a downgrade if he would have to play. Same with Minor. Blake Zukovic from Bell Vernon, he stepped in for Minor last week. It made his first start at left guard, and he got the Pitt revealed he was their lineman of the week. He got their highest graded. So he's a good player too that just, can't get on the field because there's players. So I don't think injuries will be a factor. Basically, my point of this is I don't think injuries will be a factor at all tonight for Pitt. Everyone that didn't play or was injured should play. And if they don't play, I think there's adequate guys behind them that can step up.
Yeah, and it's not like Addison would miss the game, and he was questionable a week or so earlier. And that's the explosive Pitt player that Pitt needs. And if it's not defense, because it will be really whichever defense plays better and holds enough, and maybe generates a turnover or two to get some stops, then it could be a battle of the offensive lines. Maybe as boring as that sounds, you're looking at two great quarterbacks, two explosive offenses, weapons galore. But Pitt has to have protection from the O-line for Kenny Pickett to work, as well as the same situation for North Carolina. Any pause for you? Because of what just happened a week ago. North Carolina scored every time you turn around. You couldn't even go to the bathroom in their game, 58 points on the board. Pitt, while they won, and maybe they were just kind of thinking, okay, it's cold, there's no fans here, it's Duke, we know we're going to get a victory, so we're not really into this game early. But Pitt had a very sluggish start. Their offense took a while to get going. While it eventually got going, and it has done that all year, it eventually gets going, and eventually the points are going to be there. It's arguably the best offense in the country, and certainly by the stats it is. But if that occurs against against North Carolina, like it did against Duke, is that a worry for you that if Pitt starts sluggish, they could be down 14-0, etc., based on starting slow against Duke?
No, I think the first thing you said there, I think sometimes you play in environments that, it's like a high school game at Duke.
That was awful to watch.
As far as the fans there, there's no, it's, you go into the game knowing that you're 3 touchdown favorites. You have that assumption that you're going to win, and they did end up covering. So I think that all played into it. They know now what is at stake. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. 3 games left. They know what's going on. They're going to see the ESPN crew. It's going to be a night game. I'm sure Narduzzi,
they're at home. Yeah,
at home. I'm sure Narduzzi is going to somehow mention, or the coaches are going to somehow make it aware. There's going to be 36 NFL scouts there today.
Yeah,
watching the game. There's 5 general managers. They're going to spotlight's going to be on. But the ultimate goal is, I'm sure there's something pasted in the locker room or whatever. The Coastal Championship. They know they control what they need to do. They win. They're in. They don't need help.
Right.
And, they got 2 more games here at Heinz Field. I would find it very. I would be shocked if they come out sluggish. I think the motivation is there. They'll realize that, and if they don't win, it won't be because of motivation. It'll be because, Sam Howell was too good, or, they missed tackles, or, North Carolina just made more plays than they did. So I think it's definitely going to be an entertaining game. I don't know which way I would go yet. Normally I come out with a prediction. I've said all year that this was the one game on the
this is the game people have circled.
Yeah, it's the one game that worried me all year. So I don't know how. I'm not saying they're going to lose. I just I don't have a prediction as far as I say. Other thing I'll say is it'll be a 1-score game going into the 4th quarter. Either way.
Okay, you trying to tell me you don't want to give a prediction right now? You're not ready? Maybe
If
we'll
I
get it
give
on
a
Twitter
prediction,
or the site.
I'm going to say 41-38 Pitt.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And again, the over under 73.5, which is crazy. That actually has moved down. You expect offense from these two teams. As long as Pitt doesn't miss too many tackles and maybe if they can snag a turnover or two, or if Kenny Pickett, who obviously has been great, but did have a couple interceptions recently, can't have those happen. He's going to have some pressure. He's going to have the spotlight to really impress as well. If he wants to go from moving himself into the first round to even top 15, top 10, these are the games to do that, especially with the scouts and GMs there. I think Pitt's going to win this game as well. I also think points are going to be on this board. I think it's going to be an entertaining game to watch. I'm thinking Pitt maybe 44, North Carolina 34. I think Pitt will eventually be comfortable late in the game, but going into the fourth quarter, it'll be close. Pitt maybe will snag a turnover. They will miss some tackles. You're going to have some moments in this game where Pitt fans are going to be really, really concerned. But at the end, Pitt will eventually get the victory and pull away. In that final 2 minutes, you're going to feel comfortable that Pitt will have the win. Mike Dupp here, Mike Vukovcan and Mike Asti here, Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now. Now, Mike, to flip the script and turn the smile potentially into a frown for Pitt fans, we do have to talk the Pitt basketball program, obviously starting the season with a really deflating loss to Citadel, but a loss that's not surprising for many. Many thought that, and we talked about this in the post-game show, that Pitt potentially would lose that game. You know, Nike Sabandi, who we talked about before, he's out for the whole year. He was going to be relied on. You knew Dustin Champagny wasn't going to be there. You knew Xavier Johnson wasn't going to be there. But now you're losing more and more players. And Horton's situation with his alleged assault on the South Side and his arrest and that situation that's going on. He has a court date coming up. He's not there. He's suspended indefinitely. That's obviously affecting the team too. Without Sabandi, you're then going to rely on Horton. Usually scoring, but pretty much nobody else is. What are your thoughts now on the Horton situation that we've now learned a little bit more? Granted, we still don't know everything. It still has to unravel. And how is that affecting this Pitt basketball program? Because this could really be an ugly season that was supposed to be an important season for Jeff Capel.
Well, this is tough. This could be a really bad year. And it's unfortunate. It's been a hell of a stretch here. From their exhibition game, and it was only 10 days ago or something.
The roster they thought they would have 2 weeks ago, some did have hopes for, but it's a totally different roster now.
A month ago you have Burton, Burton, Texas Tech in the lineup. He's going to be a starter. You have Sabandi finally for the whole year. You have Horton, all that, and then poof, that's gone. And to make matters even worse, they're the highest rated recruit for Jeff Capel during his time here. Judah Mintz last night announced he's decommitting. So
I'm sure he hasn't loved what he's been watching and hearing the last couple of weeks either, and you don't know the reasoning, but there
doesn't
help things.
He just gave a statement, but it was yesterday was signing day for players for hoops and baseball and other sports. When he didn't sign, everyone figured it was a bad deal, and then he announced that. But it's just tough times for Jeff Capel right now. I know fans like to be negative, but that doesn't help either. It's not to blame what's going on. I don't know what the answer is. This is there's so many factors going into what's going on, and I know you're a game into the season, and people are talking about firing Jeff Capel already. You still have a whole season left, albeit it's going to be challenging. I will say this though about losing the season, despite, and I think he'll say this too. In some ways, this is a really bad reflection on the coaching staff. In that, I don't care who is missing from your depth chart. You could lose 3 guys if you have 9 ACC guys on scholarship. You should never lose or not only lose, but basically get your ass kicked.
They were out of that game from the jump.
They were
to a military academy.
It was 16-4 before you know it.
Sure.
You should never. It should never look like that against a military academy.
Yeah, this isn't like a mid-major like Davidson when
Yes.
Steph Curry was there or something like that could really get you and make a dark horse run. This isn't George Mason that went to a Final Four. This is a military academy that they're not even there to play basketball, really.
Right. The way they lost is the thing that's you got to step back and like
right. And
they
defensively,
were never in the game.
Right.
That's worrisome. And if you can't beat that team, Lord knows what's going to happen Friday night against West Virginia.
That's right. We have.
I know West Virginia struggled at times. West Virginia struggled at times against Oakland.
They did,
but thank God for at least for Pitt that they're not playing West Virginia in like December, because once they get their momentum going a little bit, it's tough at the beginning of the season for all teams. But at least they got them at the beginning of the season. They probably won't be clicking on all cylinders. But
the only hope is West Virginia gets cold early, because that's what they did against Oakland. That's what they can do. They don't have a superstar this year. If they're cold early and they're going to take a lot of 3-pointers, that could be a problem. But the problem is Pitt, as you mentioned, defensively, they're so long, 6'6", 6'7", 6'9", if you look on the roster, and they weren't defending outside shots. They got to at least try to defend those shots. The recipe to beat West Virginia is defend the outside. If they miss shots, you have a chance. But then when I was actually talking to George in the previous show, I'll let this drop. He even said that even if that occurs and West Virginia misses shots, the way Pitt is built, he's still not confident in Pitt winning because Pitt's not going to score enough. They're going to miss their chances.
I think that's going to be their – well, another thing that's a little bit worrisome is that they still haven't fixed the teams that are able to shoot from the outside. Their rotation and the way they play defense on the perimeter.
Right.
That was a problem last year. They were bad, and it's still bad.
Yeah, Citadel wide open. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But then the other thing, your second point is going to be the biggest problem all year is secondary scoring. Not even secondary, scoring in general. John Hughley.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
Right. No. Yeah.
Hughley, he did well. He had a career game and good for him.
Yeah, he had 27.
Can he repeat that?
Yeah.
It's different when Champagny does that, because you know that every game you're going to be getting your points out of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's still Hughley still has to prove that he's able to do this on a consistent basis. I think Femi Odukali is going to be a guy that they're going to be able to count on every game. We'll see about Hughley.
Yeah. It's the two of them though. 27, 20, and then 5. Yeah, it was 27. I never in my life saw, it's very rare, 2 players over 20 points and you're getting blown out offensively, because it was 27, 20, and then 5 for the next leading score and nothing from the bench. It's really, really bad. What I do want to ask you here, Mike, before we close this chapter, this is going to be potentially a rough season, but it's a year that was supposed to be important, that people were kind of expecting at least competitiveness, even with losing Justin Champagny, Xavier Johnson, and Tony for Jeff Capel. Eventually, you got to get more victories. Eventually, they expect more. So will this be a year that gets him on the hot seat, or will people say it's unreasonable to argue that because there's nothing to deal with? And you could argue that even a Bob Huggins would not turn anything into gold with this team, since you're dealing with everything and this roster just isn't a winner. And the other end of that is, if it's because the roster is not good enough that you cannot judge Jeff Capel on this year, and it's kind of just almost a mulligan season, do you in any way give him any blame for the players leaving because some were off a relationship that didn't really gel? And even the Horton situation, that does a lot of the time fall on the coach, even if he's not there in the South Side in terms of the program, that maybe is why these players are not there on the floor.
Yeah, all that goes under the spectrum of the head coach.
Yeah.
Fair or unfair, they know that when, this is not just at Pitt.
Yeah.
Your job as a head coach, and Narduzzi knows this, Huggins, Neil Brown, anyone knows that, your job is more than just X's and O's. And if Pitt has a bad roster, if Pitt doesn't have enough scoring, if Pitt is relying on too much transfers, if Pitt has players arrested 2 years in a row, that falls under Jeff Capel. And the thing that I'm not making any judgment on his future. I think it's, that shouldn't even be talked about right now. But one thing to watch throughout the year is, of course, he's going to be under the hot seat. But a couple factors real quick is, number one, he's under contract through 2027.
Yeah, a lot of money on a buyout.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
This is also Heather Lyke's prime hire as her tenure at Pitt.
Right.
Is she going to want to cut bait with that?
Yeah, she inherited Narduzzi, but this is her hire.
She inherited Narduzzi. She hired Jeff Capel.
Right.
And we're going to have to see the recruiting, how that goes throughout the year. I'm sure she's watching. Are they getting any more recruits? Is that going to be an empty building? The Pete. Are they going to be at all competitive? Is
there excitement? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You got the backyard brawl coming up and no one cares.
Yeah, all that will factor in, I'm sure. I don't want. I hope that's not I know with fans it will be,
right,
but I'm not going to make it a subject point all year as far as the Jeff Capel watch. Jeff Capel is a good coach.
Right.
I think Jeff Capel is a good coach. Does Jeff Capel need to improve on certain areas? Yes, of course. Same as part Narduzzi.
Right.
But it's not pretty right now. This is arguably the. We thought that with Kevin Stallings. This is arguably, we could be reaching the low point of Pitt basketball in our lifetime, in going back a long, long time. It could be the low point and what we're going to be having here over the next few months. So buckle in, because it could be choppy.
Yeah, it could be. It could be choppy waters. And of course, at this point last year, Pitt started off the season slow, but they didn't realize at that point that Justin Champagnie was going to emerge to be a great player in the conference. Xavier Johnson, et cetera, could step up. I don't know if those guys are there this year. And yeah, Ugley might be able to do it, but you don't have nearly enough depth. I think that's why people are kind of writing this team off already. It could be really, really bumpy. And whether that's Capel's fault or not will be a conversation that will be discussed all year. But regardless, he's going to be there all year. He's going to be there beyond this season. And there's a lot of work to do on and off the floor for Pitt. And it is unfortunate to go into a backyard brawl after everything we've had to deal with the last couple of weeks around this city for this program, and not really to have excitement there. It will be an issue if there's going to be fans there in the dog days of a holiday, et cetera, if things get really, really bad. But keep it here to Pittsburgh Sports Now for more updates on what's going on with the Horton.
It'll be exciting in Morgantown, though. They announced yesterday that
it will be.
The game's sold out already. So
yeah, so it'll be a sellout there. It will be exciting in Morgantown. They need to play a lot better. That's the game. The West Virginia's out of conference schedule is not too tough this year. So if they are competitive, they're going to need to win the games that they have in that out of conference schedule. They actually have a lot of pressure to get this victory, much more than Pitt. Pitt's going down there that if they are even competitive, people might be impressed. West Virginia got to get a convincing win. They didn't look great early against Oakland. And if they start missing some shots early, they're not going to change. They're just going to chuck threes, and they are not great as a rebounding team, which is surprising for Huggins' team. So that's kind of a matchup that could lead Pitt to play well. Who knows? They shouldn't win on the roster, but that might be a perfect storm, maybe to motivate these kids as well. Maybe Capel telling them, hey, we can't control what's happened these past 2 weeks, but that's the backyard brawl. You might not know it because you're not from here. That game matters. If we win that game, that changes the mood around here a little bit early in the year. We will see, though. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Big games for Pitt, both on the gridiron and on the hardwood for Pitt football and Pitt basketball. 2 different seasons right now, but big games nonetheless. And